Hello, everybody. My name is Rizal Scarlett, and I'm going to be talking to you all about Git and GitHub Pages, or hosting your first website on GitHub Pages. Um, before I get started, I do want to thank the organizers of this event, including Crystal Folks, for being so flexible with me. I wish I could be there in person, or at least live, to be able to interact with you all and answer any questions you have. But things came up, and I'm really appreciative of the flexibility. And I will provide my contact information so that you all can talk with me and ask me questions in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share. Let's do this. Super excited. Present. All right. So as you can see, again, we're talking about hosting our first site via GitHub Pages, or second or third, whatever, if this is not your first one. But very quickly, background about me. I learned to code in 2018 from a coding boot camp, and I found learning to code so exciting, but also frustrating. I was also like, oh man, this is a lot. Um, but it was so fun, and I wanted to show other people like what I was doing. Like I was sitting there crying, like typing, and now I got something to work. I got like animations and stuff like that. I wanted people to see it. And I didn't want to, like, the only way people could see it is if I showed them my computer, because the code is only local to my computer. I wanted to host it. Yep, there again, I'm just saying I wanted people to access my site. I wanted to be able to just copy a link, share it. There we go. But the problem is, when I tried to do research or ask around about like how can I host my code, people talked about like you got to buy a domain name and you got to pay for it every year. I was like, I do not have money for that. Not right now, at least. People talked about I'll have to learn how to host a server. They just gave me different options like Heroku, AWS, DigitalOcean. I didn't know which one to choose. I was like a little overwhelmed. Some of them looked like I had to pay again for that. And just the process in general wasn't beginner friendly, and it wasn't a quick process. I wish I had known about GitHub Pages at the time, but I didn't learn about it until way later on. So y'all are going to get introduced to it today, and I hope it's exciting and fun for you. And some more information about me. My name is Rizal. I'm a developer advocate at GitHub. I was a software engineer for about 3 years, mostly focused on front end, but like I did a mix of like serverless stuff as well. I am program director at G Code House, which is an organization that teaches women of color and non-binary people of color to code. And I am passionate about teaching and empowering people about technology. And I'm also like a little addicted to Twitter. So if you did want to follow me on social media, you can follow me at Black Girl Bytes on Twitter, #node GitHub dev.2. Eventually, I'll try some video formats, just not ready for that yet. But here's where I would say is best to contact me on Twitter, shoot me a DM. I'm happy to answer. All right, so like I said, before we even get into GitHub Pages, I do want to like let y'all know the difference between Git and GitHub. Because like I said, at my coding boot camp, I was learning a lot, and I kept using the word Git and GitHub interchangeably. I was like, oh yeah, I know Git, I know GitHub, thinking it was the same thing. It's not. So just let yourselves know that. Maybe you already do, but Git and GitHub are not the same thing. And I just added in this slide to be like, today I work at GitHub, even though just a couple years ago, I didn't even know the difference. And I say this to say, like, not to brag, but just to say, like, just because you don't know something now doesn't mean in the future you won't be able to do it. So definitely put that, like, believe in yourself, speak the impossible or something that seems impossible to you into existence. I never imagined myself working at GitHub. So just putting it out there to remind yourself. Okay, so Git and GitHub. What's the difference? Before we even push to GitHub Pages, we got to know why they're different and how they're different. So Git is a version control system. And you're like, all right, cool, but what is a version control system? And a version control system is something that enables you to record snapshots of your project as you save the changes you make throughout history. And an example of that, if that still didn't make sense to you, right? Like saving snapshots of changes you made throughout history, maybe you're like, okay, so like, what do you mean by that? Here's an example that maybe you all will be able to relate with. In my Google Drive, I have hundreds probably of different versions of my resume. This is only a partial screenshot of what I found. Like I have Rizal's resume 4, copy of Bob Semple resume, Bob Semple Rizal resume. I don't know why like one was created versus another. I do know that I made a whole bunch of them for different reasons, for scholarships, for software engineering jobs, for internships, for developer advocacy, and I tweaked them for each job, but like it doesn't really say that like this one is the one that I used to apply for GitHub with. So it can be a little hard to keep track of, especially if your files are poorly named, like for me, right? So imagine you're working in a super large code base with multiple files and multiple people. It's going to be even harder to keep track of different files and different changes. And then you got to factor in different versions of code in a large code base. Maybe if you're not familiar, especially if you haven't worked in a corporate setting, I'll give you some examples of the different versions that can be in a code base. One, you have production code. That's the code that like everyone is interacting with, users are seeing and clicking and interacting with on your website. Then if someone who's a user reports a bug and is like, hey, this is buggy, you'll create your own local copy of that production code and you'll fix that bug. So that's your own local copy. That's already two different versions of the code base that are much different. And then once you're done with fixing that bug, you'll put it into staging. And staging is where developers test their code before putting it into production. So now that's 3 different versions of code. And there's just so much more different versions of a code base when you're working as an engineer or even in an open source project. And that can be hard to manage on your own or manually, but that's where Git comes in, and Git manages those versions for you. It essentially tells you what the latest version is, who made the specific changes, why those changes were made. And where would you use Git? You would use it in your terminal if you haven't used it before. People normally use it in their terminal or command prompt. And it looks like this. Terminals for Mac users, Windows is usually for, command prompt is usually for Windows users. Okay, now that we kind of have a better understanding of Git, I wouldn't say it's like a full understanding, but good enough. Let's talk about what GitHub is. It's a web-based platform for developers to store code on the cloud. And what do I mean by that? Essentially, it's just a website that uses Git to show all the changes you made to your code. It's stored on the cloud to make it easier for you to share with others. And let me just give you like a quick view of what GitHub looks like. If you've never been on github.com, you'll have your own profile. So GitHub kind of looks like a social media network, just a little bit for engineering work. So you'll have your own profile, followers and everything. And then you have the most important thing, your repositories. These are like your project containers, or the containers that hold code for different projects. So as you can see here, I have circled social card generator. That is a project that I did, and it is also a repo. So again, let's zoom in a little bit more. We clicked on project container, aka repository for we clicked on social card generator, which is a project container, aka repository, and we can see the different files that exist in this project. We have a git ignore file, we have a readme, we have a JavaScript file called generate-social-image.js, and we have a package.json file. So let's go ahead and look at the file. So if we clicked generate-social-image.js, we'll see this. It's just some really bad code that I wrote where I'm just like adding or giving value to some variables or declaring a couple variables. You're also able to see the changes in your code via github.com. And those changes are called commits. So as you can see on January 14th, I made a fix. And you can see why I made it. Like I wrote a little note or what's called a commit message that I added a commit response if contributor assigned self already. In the past, on July 12th, Dougie made a merge pull request. On July 10th, MT fully updated the README and updated a file called action.yaml. Those messages are made to help you understand why changes were made so that you're not confused. There's also other alternatives to GitHub. I want to make you all aware of them because sometimes you just don't know that they exist. Like when I started my first internship after my coding bootcamp, oh, my camera went away. But after I started my first internship after my coding bootcamp, I had no clue what the difference was, or I didn't even know these other ones existed. So I had signed up for my internship, started, thought we were going to be using GitHub. Turns out we were using Bitbucket and I had never heard of it before. So let's just let you know, there's GitLab, there's Bitbucket, there's Gitbucket, there's AWS Code Commit, there's SourceForge. So if you ever start a new job and you expected to see GitHub, you may see another one. They're all different ways for you to host, to store your code on the cloud. GitHub's just one of the most common or popular ones. We have about over 73 million users. All right, so you can use GitHub for other things. So GitHub allows you to have like a, there's so many options. So in addition to storing your code on there, they also have something called GitHub Pages, which allows you to host your sites via GitHub Pages. Sorry about that, I'm stuttering a little. And I do want to note that this only works for static web pages. So web pages built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's not really made to deploy sites with like databases or backend servers or anything like that. If you do want to do that, you can use something called Netlify, I think, which is also pretty beginner friendly and easy to use. So let's get started with doing this or hosting our sites on GitHub Pages. So create a GitHub account on github.com. I'm going to assume you've already done this part or you already have this, but I will wait a little bit for y'all to do that, and I'll share my screen to show you what it looks like. GitHub.com. Yeah, if you guys want to follow along, I do like things that follow along. So go ahead and click sign up and continue to sign up. I'll use this time for me to sign in. Black Girl Bites, and I believe this is my password. Oh, not opinion, 322. Okay, cool. Let's see really quickly. Actually, I'm going to use a different account because hope y'all don't mind that switch up, but I hope that gave you enough time to create an account since we're doing this live, or you're doing it with me, even though I'm not actually here. All right, let's go ahead and see what our next step is. So we created the GitHub account on github.com. Our next step, and this is what you should see entering in your email, your password, and all of that. Our next step is to go ahead and create a repository. So I'm going to click New Repository on the top right-hand corner. And let me make this just a little bit bigger for people who may not be able to see. And I'm going to call this Nesby demo site. All right, I'll keep it public, and I'll say learning to use GitHub Pages. You don't have to put a description. It's just if you want to. And I'll press create repository. All right. So they do have like a list of suggestions of like how to create a new repository from the command line from your local code, but we are not going to do that. We are just going to go ahead and like do it the easy way. So we're going to go ahead and create an HTML file inside of the repository so that we'll be able to see it be hosted. So I'm going to go ahead and press create a new file. And I will name this file index.html. I'll pause a little bit for everyone. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put an H1 in here. H1, and I will say, oh, I think I spelled Nesby wrong, but it's okay. Hello world, exclamation mark. And I'm going to go ahead and commit this file. If you guys can't see it, let me make it a little bigger, but basically I have an H1 HTML tag and a closing HTML tag, and inside of it, I wrote hello world. So let's go ahead, scroll down, commit new file. And what you should see, or what you should have, is a repository with an index.html file in here. If you don't want to follow along and you just want to watch, that's completely fine as well. All right, next thing we want to do, and this is a screenshot of that. Next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and navigate to the settings tab and then pages. So I'm going to go ahead and click settings right here. And then I'm going to click pages. And this is where GitHub Pages happens. So it kind of describes that GitHub is used to host your personal organization or project pages from a GitHub repository. Super exciting. It's currently disabled, but we just have to select the source below to enable GitHub Pages from this repository. So what we want to do is we want to select the branch that this is on. So you may have multiple branches, multiple versions of your code. What you want to do is be like, okay, I do have this on the main branch. This is where our index.html file exists. So I'm going to click main. You may have a different branch. Maybe you might have master or something, but most people should have main. So I'm going to click main, and then I'm going to press save. And it says your site is ready to be published at this link. Let's go ahead and click it. But it says site not found. I wonder why that is. Let's go back to the slides and figure out what's going on. All right, so we basically did step 5 already. Step 6 says after you save, check the actions tab for the complete build and deploy. So GitHub Pages is actually using this thing called GitHub Actions to deploy our code to GitHub Pages for us. So the reason why we saw an error is because it's not done deploying. It says in progress. So it's currently building, and then it will deploy. Cool, we got a little bit of a check mark. In this time that we're waiting for it to happen, I can do a quick refresher if I went a little bit too fast for people. So inside of the repository, after I created an index.html file with an H1 that says hello world, I'm going to go on and head over to the settings tab. Then I'm going to click GitHub Pages. Then I'm going to choose the source or the branch that I want my code to come from and to be published on. And I chose the main branch because that's where my index.html file lives. And then I press save. And then I'm going to go over to my actions tab and see if the deploy and build is done. And it has a check mark on both. So that means it is done. It only took 23 seconds for the build and 5 seconds for the deploy. And you can actually click these. So if you've seen an error by any chance on your side, you can click into there and see the logs of what happened, where are things going. But everything is pretty successful for us, so we don't need to dig in too deep here. Let's click the link, and there we go. We have a website called Hello World that I can share with anybody, and they'll be able to see this. I do want to add something else that I'm pretty proud of or excited about that I made. Oops, not the right thing. So we already did that. The next thing I want to talk about is I made a VS Code extension. that will actually deploy your code to GitHub Pages without leaving your IDE or without leaving VS Code. So I'm gonna just create another repository, VS Code demo. You guys don't have to follow along with this if you don't want to, but I do just want to show this because I think it's cool. I'm going to create an index.html file. I'm going to say h1, and I'll say, what else can I say? Hello world, so boring. I'll just say sup, like what's up. All right, I'm going to commit that new file. Oh, that name already exists. I don't think so. Does it? Oh, okay. But anyways, it worked. It was committed. Let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. And inside of there, I am going to install, I'm going to go to the extension section right here. So it's these little building blocks, I like to call them. And I'm going to search for my VS Code extension called Deploy to GitHub Pages. And let me reload. Sorry. Deploy to GitHub Pages. This can work. Oh, here it is. So it has my name. I'm the author of this. I'm super excited because it was like the first VS Code extension I made. And I made it for part of this reason. So I'm going to go ahead and press install. And now I can use it. So how I use it is I'm going to press Command P on my Mac computer, and it should open up this little file picker here. After that, I'm going to do Shift and then period, and it'll create that caret for me that you can see. And I'm going to press Deploy to GitHub Pages. This may ask you to authenticate or log in to GitHub, but I'm already logged in through this. So what I'm going to do is this shows me a list of my 10 top most recent, or maybe more than 10 actually, but some of my most recent repositories in order of most recent to least recent. So my most recent one is the VS Code demo. I'm going to click this repository because this is the one I want to publish to GitHub Pages. A little toast or message comes up saying, do you want to publish this? I press publish. And another message says, your page will be available in a few minutes. So if I copy this link, let's get this working. I can't copy and paste apparently. If I copy, let's try this again. Again, we see the 404, but if you guys remember, it's probably because the action is still going. So if we go ahead and check, yep, this action is still building and deploying, but it should be available in just a couple seconds. So let's see it happen in action. We can actually watch the logs happen. So I've clicked into it and we can watch them happen live. So the deploy started, did the setup for the job, pre-deploy, deploy, the job is complete. Let's go ahead and see where that link is. Oh, it said it was complete. Let's try again. Let's click that link. And there we have the HTML file that says sup. So I just wanted to make you all aware of those two different options. One, you have one built into GitHub where you would just go to settings and configure it on your own, or you can go ahead and use the VS Code extension I built because I'm excited about it and I would love feedback on it. I hope this was helpful to you in learning how you can host your first website. Of course, I just used HTML, but you can use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, make it look a little bit cuter than what I did. And this was a really great experience. If you ever want to chat with me, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. My name is Rizal Scarlett. Or you can also DM me on Twitter, or you can DM me on anything you want. But I'm basically on all social media as Black Girl Bites. Thank you so much and see you later. Oh, my camera changed, but thank you so much and see you later.